It's time!
3, 2, 1, go. Get up, let me begin. This is TWSN. You ain't heard about us yet, well you better know now, because it's the place that it all goes down. Get up, let me begin. This is TWSN. You ain't heard about us yet, well you better know now, because it's the place that it all goes down.
Shout out Young Swish.
Strikes and Submissions is back. My name is Michael Daly, and before I talk about the change to the show, I just want to give a shout out to my former co-host Dorian Wright, who held it down on this program for about 10 months. Dorian stepping away for the foreseeable future, but we hope to have him back sooner than later. So Dorian, if you're out there, if you're watching, shout out to you, my man. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. Nader Assaf is coming on board for the time being. He's filling in for, I guess he'd be filling in for me, and I'm filling in for Dorian. Nader, great to have you on, my dude.
Appreciate that, Michael. And huge shout out to Dorian. Again, I'm really excited to be able to fill in for him and, be able to really just, carry on almost the legacy of this great show. I've been a huge fan of it since the beginning, and I'm really excited to be able to finally get finally be able to come on and talk MMA with you guys, with MMA. So I'm really excited, my man.
Absolutely. You've always been a supporter of ours and couldn't ask for anyone else to step in. Unfortunately, though, we have to start with a very heavy topic, and that is the arrest of Cain Velasquez, where he was charged with attempted premeditated murder. That was the initial report, but more information came out of it where Cain Velasquez essentially defended a young relative who was touched inappropriately, and that's where the murder charge came. And according to the reports, the other person involved who was shot at was charged with molestation. So a very, very heavy topic, Nader. But what I'll say, it is a sad, sad situation. It's a sad situation. I'm not a law expert, so I'm not here to talk about legally what's right and what's wrong. I do know that in the legal system, two wrongs do not always make a right, and I think that's part of the reason why Cain is in this situation. But if there is one positive takeaway, it is the fact that the MMA community staunchly are rallying around Cain, because this is a real situation, Nader, where this could happen to anybody. It could happen to anybody where you feel like you have to defend yourself or defend a relative. And again, I'm not here to take a side. I am just merely saying that was a real life situation that happened in Northern California.
Oh, for sure. And first of all, I just wanted to say prayers to everyone that was involved and prayers to Cain and his family. It's a really tough time for them. And, there's a reason that the MMA community is behind Cain. They know how good and genuine of a person Cain Velasquez was. Although I didn't get to see him in his prime, I do know how much of a legend he is and how much, of a positive light he's been on not only other fighters, but fans, and how much he's loved and respected throughout the MMA community. And it's really a horrible thing. We have to have more details come out. And, as time goes on, we're going to be able to learn more about the topic. But, he felt the need to protect and, defend his family. And that's, right someone has. At the same time, too, as you said, two wrongs don't make a right. It's just truly, really unfortunate because, at the end of the day, family's number one, and Cain saw that. So it's honestly very unfortunate, and it's a very sad situation. But as you see, the MMA community is behind his back, so he knows that he's not alone during these times.
Extremely sad situation. Let's switch gears to something I thought I'd never say, to a lighter subject. Fisticuffs, fighting. Who would have thought, Nader, that fighting would be a lighter subject? But here we are. We're going to talk about the debacle that was Josh Taylor-Jack Catterall in Scotland. Nader, what were your biggest takeaways from that boxing match?
Michael, my biggest takeaway, if I'm not mistaken, 7 letters. ROBBERY. Robbery. And I know that this term is not my favorite term because of its overuse in the combat sports community. But if there's anything that can go in the dictionary, an example of this thing, it's this. This should be the definition and example of a robbery. Jack Catterall won this fight. And I think that everybody that knows boxing in their own right agrees with me. And the fact that he lost and got a point off for persistent holding, not even because he did something illegal. It's not like he did a rabbit punch. He didn't punch a grounded fighter. Persistent holding. And it's truly unfortunate because Taylor, he retained, which he shouldn't have in the first place. And not only that, there's been rumors that Jack Catterall is arguably, he's going back and forth on whether or not he should retire at this point. And although he should be holding belts right now, he's considering retirement because 2 judges decided that, they didn't want to watch a fight properly and gave it to the wrong guy. The refereeing was not good. The judging was not good. And I'm truly, truly baffled about why Jack Catterall did not have his hand raised at the end of those 12 rounds.
Nader, I wish I could disagree with you. For the most part, I do agree with you. I do. Jack Catterall, I thought, did more than enough to win that fight. But you have to understand, and I'm going to take the devil's advocate side here. If you're Jack Catterall, you know that if this fight is close at all in Scotland against the guy who might end up being a top 5 Scottish boxer of all time, those judges are not going against him. I don't know if we're adding that into it, a little home cooking added to the decision, if Catterall did enough to win. He dropped him. I get it. And I'm someone, I believe he should have won. But what I believe is different than what the judges who are facing a hometown crowd, they don't want to make people mad. My opinion is different than what the reality of a situation like that is going to be. But Nader, what I will disagree with you, I don't think you're putting enough blame on one person. Marcus McDonald, the referee. You're talking about the judges. You're talking about Josh Taylor. My man, we have to talk about Marcus McDonald and why he should never referee a title fight overseas ever again. I'm sorry.
Terrible. Yep.
Victor Laughlin, who was actually one of the judges the week before, he reffed Kell Brook, Amir Khan. You didn't even see Victor Laughlin. You heard him, but you didn't see him. That's what makes the top tier referees the top tier referees, because they know when to interject, but they know when to stay out. Marcus McDonald thought he was literally the third guy fighting, and that should never be the case. So Nader, I get where you're coming from, but I wouldn't even blame Josh Taylor, because Josh Taylor knows he should have lost.
I'm not blaming Josh Taylor. Definitely not blaming Josh Taylor. And I agree with that. Because, as I said, the persistent holding penalty, that was absolute insanity. And I agree. And the fact is, that has been a problem with boxing for a while. Some refs put it into their own hands. And even in MMA, too, you can argue that some refs put it in their own hands and they make it about them. And that is the exact opposite of what you're supposed to do. It is guy 1 in red corner and guy B in the blue corner that are supposed to be fighting. You are not fighting, and therefore, you shouldn't be the one that is making you the star of their show. It is them two on the headliners. It is them two that are being announced to be fighting. But no, Marcus McDonald thought it was his right to go in, make the show about him. Not only that, persistent holding, a whole point off when he's the challenger. And yes, I also do agree with the fact that, it is tough because hometown crowd is a huge thing. But at the same time, judges have to understand the fact that when a fighter, especially a challenger, because I agree with the fact a challenger has to take away the belt from the champion. Same thing goes with MMA. Same thing goes with boxing, any combat sport. If you're the challenger, you have to take away the belt. And Catterall did exactly that, and they did not award him. So, yeah, I am very disappointed in last weekend's decision.
Here's the thing with that, Nader, too. It's not like Marcus McDonald was making a lot of his judgment calls that were leaning towards Josh Taylor. Some of them were, don't get me wrong, they were. But there was one point where Josh Taylor, after the bell, kind of hit Jack Catterall with a little pot shot. Not even any, he literally just flicked his glove at him and took a point away. Boxing needs to do something where the referees cannot have that much power. If you look at legitimate boxing matches in the United States, you never see that. Rarely. From time to time, Jack Reese, he'll mess up, but usually he's on par. Steve Willis, Kenny Bayless. Like, there are guys that know what they're doing. Marcus McDonald, Nader, I am afraid, should never referee a boxing match ever again. Because if it could happen to Jack Catterall, it could happen to anybody. So that's all I got to say. I don't know if you have anything more to add on that.
No, yeah, I agree completely with what you said. And it's just truly unfortunate because refs have to be held accountable. I think that McDonald does have to be held accountable because he potentially caused someone, a future in their career and is pushing them on the brink of retirement. For an extremely talented boxer like Catterall, it's just overall, it's a very disappointing thing. And I think that refs need to be held accountable and boxing needs to do something about this. And even though they already challenged the decision, they said that it's most likely not going to be overturned. That's what I read. So it's just disappointing.
It's not going to change, but let's talk about something that will not change either. And that is the outcome of Bellator 275, the main event there. Gegard Mousasi, man, he has found a home in Bellator. In Ireland last week, he took down and submitted, or actually not submitted, he finished in the first round, Austin Vanderford. Nader, what were your takeaways from that title fight and the 185-pound division in Bellator?
My main takeaway, Michael, although there are many that are in a positive light about Mousasi, is the fact that he has to be regarded now, not necessarily as the best middleweight in the world, but one of the best middleweights in the world. I think it is time for him to get his respect. And I know but this dude has 56 professional fights. Name another guy that has almost 50 wins, is still arguably in his prime, and is the champion of one of the second best, in my opinion, MMA promotion in the world. His striking, although it's not his main suit, is extremely clean, and it works perfectly with his wrestling. And the fact that he just, in 3 minutes, did what he did to Vanderford, which I believe was the number one contender at the time, it just shows the gap between him and the rest of the contenders. Until someone else comes up to face Mousasi, I think that this guy is going to rule that division for a while.
He might be on top of Bellator. But let's not act, Nader, like this wasn't the same guy who had plenty of opportunities when he fought in the UFC to go fight for a title, and he never could. I'm sorry. Look, Mousasi looks as great as he ever has. In Bellator, put him in the UFC against Robert Whittaker. Put him in there against Jared Cannonier, Derek Brunson, Israel Adesanya. I'm sorry, Nader. He's losing.
I say he's number 5. I think that he can arguably be a top 5 fighter in the UFC middleweight division. I think that Vettori I would say 5 to 6. I think Vettori beats him. I think Izzy and Rob beat him. And I can also see Cannonier and Brunson both beating him. Other than that, I mean, potentially Costa, but, he's kind of on the brink of being a light heavyweight. So I don't know if we can consider him anymore a middleweight. But Kevin Holland moved down. I don't really think that he can beat him. But I just saw some atrocious tweets. People, guys that were just entering the middleweight top ranks. This guy is definitely someone said that Sean Strickland could beat Mousasi, and I don't necessarily agree with that. Sean Strickland, in his own right, is a great fighter, but I think that at a certain point you have to give respect to the champion of a promotion in the caliber of Bellator. Now, do I think that he would go in and even really give Izzy a tough fight? No, I think it is fair to say that he would be easily in the top 10 of the UFC. At a time where the middleweight division is actually, now that I think about it, it's looking fairly decent, besides the fact that he's wiped away the whole division. But when it comes to strictly contenders, that division is great. And I think that Mousasi can easily be in the mix of a top 10 fighter, potentially top 5 in the UFC.
Nader, call me crazy, and you probably will. I think Sean Strickland could beat Gegard Mousasi. If he's able to keep it standing up, I think he could beat Mousasi. Now, if Mousasi's able to take him down, it could be a different story, but Strickland, he doesn't go away. He's like a hurricane. He does not go away. Mousasi would have trouble on his hand, and that's why it's hard for me right now, as great as Mousasi is, to put him in the upper echelon in the entire world, all promotions of the middleweight division. I think Strickland would give him a run for his money.
It's tough. I think that Sean Strickland is an amazing fighter. I think that we just need to see more because I think that he almost in a way let down UFC fans when it came to his performance against Hermanson. It was a good performance. No, come on. He sparred for 5 rounds, Michael. He sparred for 5 rounds. He won. Yes, people are saying, everybody thinks, and including myself, jab, jab, jab. We want to see more out of this guy. If he wants to get into the title contention, although he technically is in title contention, he needs to go in and needs to show fighters. Right now, Sean Strickland, he needs to show me more before I can put him in the ranks of that. That's just my personal opinion.
Oh, come on. Okay, so you're saying he sparred. What did you want him to do? Did you want him to get taken down?
No, but at the same time, you have to show something. It depends on what his agenda was. Is he trying to show that he's one of the best middleweights in the world, or was he just trying to get a win? At a certain point, Sean Strickland just changed his whole demeanor of being some guy that's going to go in. He's going to brawl with you. He's this guy that's going to talk trash to you. And then when he knows he wins the fight for the last 10 seconds, now he starts talking trash. I was not insanely impressed by his performance. Was it a smart performance? Yes. I'm not saying that he should have gone buck wild crazy and swung his head off. But at the same time, I think I need to see more from Sean Strickland before I can say he can beat a guy like Mousasi.
Excuse me. Sean Strickland can light up anybody's legs. I think he could do the same to Mousasi. Like, the fact that you are using that as a litmus test, saying that he couldn't live up against someone like Mousasi, I don't think it's fair, because Hermanson, at this moment in time, Nader, some may say he's a gatekeeper, but if you could beat Hermanson, you're in a position to fight top 3, top 5 guys, just like Mousasi. I think Strickland could beat Mousasi. The fact that you're saying that he just walked through his last fight, I mean, come on. Come on.
He did walk through Hermanson. And is it just me, or did you see that Hermanson was oddly tired after the second round for a guy that's known for his cardio? He was breathing heavy. He was sluggish after 1 round. And I'm going to say it was an extreme letdown on the Joker. But at the same time, Michael, this dude is a champion, and he's wiping guys, destroying them. And you could say that he's in his prime now, and he wasn't in his prime when it came to the UFC. So I think that, yes, you have to give this dude respect. Is he the best middleweight in the world? He can tell himself all he's wants. He's not a top 3 middleweight in this world. I do not care what you say. He is not. And it's as simple as that. But saying that he won't beat a guy like Sean Strickland, who's ranked 8 in the UFC, when he's the champion of Bellator? Come on, Michael. I just can't.
Bellator. We're talking about Bellator
is the second best promotion in the UFC. In MMA. You got to give respect to that.
Sean Strickland's fighting in the best. That's the difference.
Who has Sean Strickland beaten besides Hermanson?
I'll look at it right now. First off, this guy has fought everybody. He fought Kamaru Usman at 170.
And he lost.
He lost. Everyone else has lost except for one other guy who has fought Kamaru Usman.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair, but 50 wins, and you're still young, I think that's exceptional.
It is. In Bellator, but I do not think it's going to cut it when, look, at this stage in his career, Sean Strickland beat a Uriah Hall and made Uriah Hall look defenseless. You're telling me he couldn't do that to some extent to Mousasi?
Uriah Hall and Mousasi should not be in the same sentence. Uriah Hall is one of the most inconsistent fighters I think I've ever seen in my life. Okay. The dude is the middleweight version of Ovince St. Preux, and the middleweight version of a guy like Michael Johnson. And think, Gegard Mousasi beat guys like Uriah Hall. He beat Chris Weidman. He beat Thiago Santos. He beat Vitor Belfort. This dude beat Dan Henderson back in 2015 when Dan Henderson was arguably still a great fighter. And he just had some absolutely fantastic names on his resume that Sean Strickland simply doesn't have. He also beat Souza back in, let me see. He beat Souza in, I believe, 2008. This dude even fought Mark Hunt. Like, this dude is wild. I think that we have to put a bit more respect on his name.
In Bellator, sure, but you mean to tell me Mousasi wouldn't try to do the exact same thing Hermanson did, try to take him down, double leg him?
Strickland is 10 times better than Hermanson. That's what I think. Sure,
but of course Strickland will be training even harder for Mousasi's wrestling. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I know.
Just to clear the air, Mousasi and Uriah Hall fought twice. He got knocked out the first time, and then the second. And then the second time he fought Uriah Hall in 2016, he won by TKO.
Yeah.
Just to put there on that.
They did fight, and they split that. But look, Strickland, if you could beat Uriah Hall, I think you are somebody. But if you could beat Jack Hermanson, you're definitely an elite fighter. So we'll move on from there. But I think Mousasi left the UFC for a reason. That's all I'll say. Let's talk about the UFC now.
My favorite.
UFC Vegas 49. Our guy, Islam Makhachev. I mean, Nader, I think we're the conductors, baby.
Makhachev Mafia, baby.
Yep. Choo-choo. We've been saying
Choo-choo.
at least for a year now that Islam Makhachev is championship material.
Ever since Drew Dober, we've been on the train, Michael. And I think it's, for with all due respect, I think that we're the one and only conductors of the Makhachev Mafia train.
If you can beat Bobby Green the way that Islam Makhachev did, my goodness. My goodness. If you can beat Bobby Green like that, flatten him out, and I know Bobby Green took the fight on short notice, that's going to be a condemnation of Islam Makhachev, but it shouldn't be. Makhachev also took the fight on a week's notice, if you think about it, because he easily could have said, no, I'll wait for Beneil. But instead, he said, all right, let me throw out my game plan and focus on a guy who's trying to take my head off in less than a week. You have to give Islam some credit. What I will say, although the sample size wasn't that large, it was not even a round, I liked what I saw from Islam Makhachev. Leg kicks, strong jab, and then obviously the world-class wrestling. All around, this is going to sound wild, I think he's a better fighter than Khabib Nurmagomedov ever was. All around. Not as a wrestler. Khabib, in terms of wrestling, him and Daniel Cormier might be the most dominant wrestlers. I'm not saying Islam's a better wrestler, but if Islam's not just as good, he's a tick below. I think Islam will be remembered as a better all-around fighter than Khabib.
As you said before in the show, I would love to disagree with you, but I just cannot. I've talked about this before. I view Islam as having better Brazilian jiu-jitsu, although Khabib was arguably the better submission artist. I also think that Islam is a much better striker than Khabib ever was, and that's with all due respect to Khabib. I love Khabib. If you know me, I'm one of his biggest fans. No, I love what he did for the sport, but I think that Islam is a better striker than Khabib. It's just the thing is, as Javier Mendez said, the difference between the two of them is that Khabib was nonstop determination, domination, all of that. Islam is much more relaxed. I disagree with that comment. I think that Islam, when it comes to his technical skill level and just technique, I think that he is near or even above at a certain point. I think that he's above Islam Makhachev, Khabib Nurmagomedov. Just coming from the fact that, yes, he is a better striker. I think that his more relaxed approach is really suitable for his overall skill set. And at a certain point, I think that before we can say that, I don't think he's ever going to match Khabib's legacy unless he goes off to go for 5 dominant wins against the top lightweight contenders at the time. But the thing is about Islam Makhachev is that he does things and he does them so easily. Khabib, you can always see that he was not heated per se, but he was always going after you and he was talking to you in the ring and he was smash. And the thing about Islam is that he's just so calm and cool and collected. But I want to see him against higher competition. I know that's a cliche thing. And Michael, you know how much of a fan I am of Islam. But I want to see him against Beneil Dariush, and that will tell me so much about him. For now, I'm going to wait back to see. I think that he would put up a good fight against Oliveira. Those are my 2 favorite fighters, arguably ever. So that's going to tear me apart when the time comes. But at a certain point, I want to see him against bigger and better competition before I make a final say about Islam Makhachev.
I understand anyone who would say that's crazy. I know Chase thinks it's crazy and whatever. But the thing with Islam Makhachev, you can say, oh, who has he fought? He has fought everybody who they have given him. If you remember, several times he had a chance to fight RDA, but it fell through. And
Yeah.
now the criticism can be, oh, I could have fought him this time. No. I think it was smart for him not fighting RDA on a week's notice. But I bring up the RDA fight because Islam had chances to fight credible guys. They didn't want to fight him. Paul Felder did not want to fight him. Khabib had the same issue. For a while, a lot of people from, let's say, 2012 to 2016 were ducking Khabib.
Oh, yeah.
And then once he beat Michael Johnson, that's when you really couldn't avoid him any longer. You couldn't. Tony Ferguson had to be like, all right, I'll try to slay the dragon. Edson Barbosa tried, failed. Now, what I will say, Islam's not as dominant as Khabib. That's not something I will ever say. Khabib,
nowhere near.
Khabib, in my opinion, is the greatest fighter of all time.
I agree.
Because of his wrestling. Yes, he knocked Conor McGregor down. Yes, Justin Gaethje, that you brought up, Chase, in the comments, did a solid job there. But Justin Gaethje was also lighting his legs up too. Islam, for my money, is a better striker.
Easily.
He has better defensive leg kicks. Like, Islam, when it's all said and done, will not be as dominant. But Islam, I think when it comes to being a tactician and being able to encompass everything, I think he's going to be better than Khabib. I really do.
Oh, yeah, and just to go to show you about his technique, when he was fighting Thiago Moises, many believe view him as a Brazilian jiu-jitsu wizard. Thiago Moises, despite not having a ranking next to his name, is an extremely talented fighter.
No, Nader, actually, Moises was ranked when they fought in July.
Oh, I'm sorry, he was. He currently is
like
ranked
15th, around there.
He was 15, yeah. But Moises is probably, one of the better grapplers in all of MMA because he's in the best promotion. And, although he doesn't get any, hype behind his name, he is an extremely talented fighter. And Javier Mendez himself said that they plan to have the Matador game plan against Moises. And due to Islam's flexibility and, just whole, fight IQ, they were able to throw out that game plan and go with what Islam was feeling 10 minutes, I believe, before the fight, and he executed it to a T. Yes, he looked a bit odd at times during the Moises fight, but he got the finish and he submitted someone who everybody is scared to go on the ground with. So I think that it just goes to show you how talented Islam is. And do you mind if we touch a bit about him not being able to take the RDA fight?
Please do. That's exactly where I wanted to go. Please do.
Yeah, for sure. It's just it's a very tough topic because of what Dana White has come out to say that pretty much cost him a title shot sooner than he would have wanted, because Dana White said that they are rebooking the Dariush fight, and it's a very messy topic, just coming from the fact that for a guy like Islam, him and Khabib, they don't necessarily cut weight easily, and I think that's been something that's been known, throughout both of their whole careers. And just, you don't go fight Bobby Green and then just 4 days later to fight against RDA. Although I believe Islam could easily beat RDA, and that's just my personal opinion. I think that the RDA doesn't stand a chance against Islam, and neither does pretty much 99% of the division. I just think that he made the right decision in the long term, but for some reason he's being penalized for it, which isn't necessarily right.
Here's the one problem I had with Islam after his win. He should have kept his mouth shut with RDA. I understand him and RDA do not like each other. They have a long-standing history with one another. Islam wants that fight. He should have never said anything about it, because the moment you can't answer that call, everyone's going to be looking like, wait, you just said you wanted this guy. It was here for you on a silver platter, Islam, and now you don't want him? I think Islam's handlers or whoever, or Islam himself, should have known better. Ali, whoever it was, right? Whoever it was, should have told him, or Islam himself, to stay quiet. Do not feed into it, because not only if you can't answer the call does it look bad, But I think taking the fight against RDA on a week's notice is exactly what he wants. Where it's a 160-pound fight. Look at RDA's last win. Came against Paul Felder, who took the fight on 4 days' notice and beat him. That's what RDA wants. RDA wants you to be tired. He wants you to have tread on your tires so that when he goes against you, he's fresh and you're not. I still think Islam could have beaten him, but that's the reason why I think Dana White said what he said, where he went to bed one night thinking, okay, Islam will be in the co-main, and then Islam wasn't. So there, I can't fault Dana for feeling that because the feelers were put out.
It was a poorly managed situation. I think that Islam, especially now the things that have come out, I think it's a bit of a reputation hit for him, but it's not as big as it could have been because we all know that Islam is better than RDA at this point. Let's say you give us the Islam before this Bobby Green fight and before his last fight, I think that it's a completely different story. But I think that now we can regard Islam as one of the best fighters in this division and arguably a guy who can be the champion within the next year, if we're being honest. I think that it could potentially be something that is a negative for the time being, as you said, because, RDA said, yep, 165, whatever you want, let's do it. And then all of a sudden, Islam just says no. He was offered the fight at the weight he wanted and then just says no. You can't talk, and then the UFC offers you things according to what you want, and then you just completely shut it down. And then they make it public about it. I don't think it's a huge hit on Islam, but I think that it was definitely a poorly managed situation, whether it was Ali on his Twitter, him on his Twitter, whoever on his Twitter. But yeah, it definitely is something that he shouldn't be celebrating.
I am confused, though, with all of this criticism that he has gotten from the UFC brass, because after he beat Bobby Green, it sure as heck sounded like Islam was next in line to fight the winner of Gaethje and then the champion Oliveira. That's what it sounded like. Maybe I read the tea leaves wrong, but man, I still don't think, I don't know. Maybe he should have just kept his mouth shut, like I said, but I still don't understand how on Saturday night you can go from being, okay, Islam is the guy, Islam's next in line, and then Monday night, Islam back of the line, you got to go fight Dariush once his fibula heals. I don't get it. That part I don't get.
Yeah, and I think that the thing is, I think that Islam should get the next title fight when it comes to the business aspect of things because of how marketable he is. But at the same time, I also find it weird, not only because of that and how marketable he is, because this lightweight division is stacked, believe me. But there are a lot of fighters who simply aren't ready yet to be considered title challengers. And the winner of this, and if Dariush, he's getting older. He's definitely not getting younger. He just had an injury that requires some processing time. And for an active champion like Oliveira, who, is constantly showing the fans the true guy he is, which is a great person, great fighter, a guy that wants to be active and keep this lightweight division that's been rather slow the last 10 years with Conor and, everything surrounding it. I think that, Islam was the guy. I think that Islam showed everyone that he has the opportunity, and he just dominated Bobby Green. Yes, Bobby Green not ranked. I don't care what you say. Bobby Green is a legend in the game. And I think that he should have gotten the next shot. That's just my opinion. I think that it was the perfect storyline. Even the odds came out. Did you see that Islam was a -400 favorite and Oliveira was a +300 underdog? You don't just throw those odds out to anyone. So yeah, poor managed situation, extremely confusing. And it's kind of been an up and down week considering the fact that Islam just got a very nice win and then was followed by this whole RDA thing, which is kind of unfortunate.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say here before we move on to the pay-per-view, anyone out there could say, oh, well, look, he's still on the doorstep of a title fight. Look, the way it seemed, if you beat Beneil Dariush or even Bobby Green, you beat Bobby Green, who's on a 6-fight winning streak, you're no longer on the doorstep. You're next in line to take the prom queen to the dance. You're next in line. But now he's got to go back in line and get another fight. That's the problem I had here, because all along the promotion was drumming up, all right, winner of this one, Dariush or Makhachev, you're next up. Even Bobby Green, had he won that fight, he probably would have needed another fight, but there would have been some chatter. He might deserve the next title shot, especially coming off of a 6-fight winning streak, beating Al Iaquinta, his fight before the Islam fight as well. I don't know. Hopefully one day, though, Islam, Makhachev Mafia, we get our due, because this guy will be the champion within the next year if he's given that opportunity. Whenever he fights for the title, he will be the champion. I don't care who it is. He's wiping that division clean. So
I agree. 100%.
We could stick with the lightweight division, although the fight that we're going to talk about now is being fought at a catchweight. 160 pounds, Rafael dos Anjos, who we just talked about, and Renato Moicano, who stepped up on short notice after fighting on February 12th against Alexander Hernandez. He's taking that fight. Moicano, he's stepping into the big leagues now. Nader, who do you got in this one, in the co-main event of UFC 272?
Call me crazy, but I'm not picking RDA. I know this might sound right. Right now, I'm currently in the middle, but I'm kind of leaning Moicano. It's just very tough because RDA is not what he used to be. Extremely long layoff. But the thing is, you don't just take a fight, 4 days notice, after this would be your back-to-back pay-per-view appearance. And you don't just come on and you don't just fight RDA on 4 day notice without seeing something that can easily get you a win. I know this may sound odd, but at the same time, Moicano, he definitely has the experience. He's been in there with Brian Ortega. He's been in there with Rafael Fiziev, although he got knocked out. I mean, who does Rafael Fiziev not knock out? Mm-hmm. Bobby Green, our man, Bobby Green. But he's also been in there with Jose Aldo. I think that he definitely has the experience. Not only that, he's a huge fighter. I don't know how he used to make featherweight. It just baffles me. He is a huge fighter. I believe he has 3 inches in height, 2 inches in reach against RDA. And I think that in all, RDA is not what he used to be. And Moicano understands that if he loses this fight, his career, when it comes to title contention, is pretty much over. Because if you can't beat an old RDA, I don't care if you have an excuse of 4 days notice. There's got to be something there that him and his camp sees that they can go and attack, and I'm picking Moicano.
If it was a full camp, I think I'd be on board with you. But, man, less than a week taking a fight against RDA, who has been sitting around since November 2020 to get back into the octagon, I'm going to go with RDA, because look what happened the last time someone tried taking a fight on less than a week's notice. It did not pan out well for Paul Felder. Obviously, I know the circumstances were different. Paul Felder, before then, had a 9-month layoff. Moicano, what would that be, a 3-week layoff from his last fight? But
yeah, less than 3 weeks.
I just don't think it's a great idea, Nader, because Moicano is solid at his wrestling takedown defense. He stops 80% of takedowns coming his way. An amazing submission artist. Look what he did to Alexander Hernandez. But Dos Anjos, I would say he's a level above a gatekeeper. Because when you say a gatekeeper, that's a pejorative term. Because you're more or less saying, all right, this guy's washed up. Dos Anjos, if he was really washed up, I do not think he would have been in contention to fight someone like Islam Makhachev. Or even Paul Felder, or there were other names thrown out there too for Dos Anjos to fight. He still has to prove himself, and I think Dos Anjos will. If it's kept on the feet, I think Dos Anjos could have the advantage there. And Dos Anjos, I know Moicano has an 80% takedown defense rate, but Dos Anjos does not give up trying to get takedowns. He does not give up. And that's why I think over the course of a 5-round fight, because remember, this is 5 rounds, and you're giving Dos Anjos an extra 5 pounds when he's used to fighting or jumping back and forth between 155 and 170, you're allowing him to have an extra 5 pounds. I think that will benefit Dos Anjos. I do.
Yeah, and that's fair. But at the same time, an extra 5 pounds, although it may seem minimal, what is RDA known for? If I'm not mistaken, it's his cardio, it's his speed, it's his relentless pace almost. And I think that 5 pounds is more than a big difference when it comes to, those three things, because cardio is based on weight and your weight cut and how, gaining weight after weigh-ins went. And I just think that the whole thing I'm going to go back to my main point. I don't think you could just take a fight without RDA without seeing something. And Moicano, the thing is, he had a run as a top 10 featherweight. He did. He has experience. People have to make sure that, they know that Moicano is an experienced fighter. He's been in the game. He's 8-4 in the UFC. He's only lost to top tier competition. And he's beat some guys that are extremely impressive names to have on your resume. Alexander Hernandez, I was on his bandwagon for a bit. The Cerrone fight didn't help him, but I chose Alexander Hernandez. After what he did in his previous fight, I thought this dude's going to come out. He's going to knock out Moicano. He's going to go back. He's going to make a run in the top 15. He's going to redeem himself for all the trash he talked and then getting knocked out and schooled by Donald Cowboy Cerrone. But he went in there. He actually was outstriking Hernandez for the most part. I think that Hernandez might have been winning the earlier parts of the round. That was my favorite fight when it comes to matchmaking, 271, and I was on Hernandez's side, and I was extremely, intrigued by the way Moicano was fighting, because he does have a history of struggling with some impressive strikers, but he handled Alexander Hernandez pretty well, who not only has speed, but he has power, and he can put your lights out at any minute. So I think that I'm going to be leaning Moicano for now. I'm not counting out RDA because he is a southpaw, and I think that's a big thing that Moicano struggles with, because Ortega and Fiziev were both. Of course, those are high-level guys and high-level strikers, but they are switch stance guys, and they are 2 of his 4 losses. So I think it's important to understand that Moicano certainly isn't some guy that's going to come in and wipe the floor with RDA. But I like the fact that it's a 5-round fight, and I like the fact that Moicano has a lot of time to do something, because I do not see RDA getting the finish. I see a decision win if he were to win, and I see a finish from Moicano if he were to win. He's not beating RDA by decision.
Moicano has to submit him. That I will give you.
Yeah, for sure. I agree.
That's the only conceivable way that I see Moicano winning, because Moicano has 9 submissions on his record. However, and what gives me pause for picking the younger guy, Moicano, who has paid his dues, RDA has never been submitted in his career. He is an amazing jiu-jitsu practitioner. He's a hard guy, not only to take down, but when you have him on the ground, trying to submit him. No one else has done it, and it's hard for me to believe that Moicano will be the guy to do it, Nader. It's hard.
I agree, but I do think that we're not going to be seeing the same RDA. A 477-day layoff is huge, especially for a guy that stayed in the top 6 of a division that's changed so much in those 477 days. Pretty sure like 8 out of the 15 or 8 plus out of the 15 fighters who are currently ranked are no different than what they've said. So I do have him winning by finish. He's definitely not winning by decision. But at the same time, I'm going to go back to the point.
Yeah, Chase is going the opposite. Maybe that will be good for Chase, but you know what, Nader? Not to cut you off, but
no.
A 400-day layoff is not good. I will concede that to you, but he doesn't have to cut that extra 5 pounds. That's crucial. That is big on the scales. That's where fights are won and lost.
At the same point it is, but at the same time, it's a different weight than he's used to, and it's going to be not only a change. I think that this catch weight benefits Moicano much more than it benefits RDA, simply coming from the fact that RDA, he's been planning his whole camp for, like he said in Embedded, he planned his whole camp to be coming in at 154, and he was having a bit of a disagreement with his trainer about whether they wanted to continue to sweat and work it out and hit that mark or just stay above. So it's definitely a change on his part. Moicano is going to be cutting weight, expecting to go at 160. And this is just a whole shift from RDA. And just like you said with Bobby Green and Islam Makhachev, RDA is as much as Moicano is fighting RDA on 4-day notice, RDA is fighting Moicano on 4-day notice. So, and Moicano and Fiziev are extremely different fighters. So I think that I'm going to give the element surprise to Moicano for sure.
You have Moicano. I have Dos Anjos. Let's see who's right in that. We have a main event to go break down. There's not a title on the line for this welterweight bout, but, well, technically there is, the BMF, but that's neither here nor there. I don't want to get into that.
Big title.
This is going to be one heck of a main event.
Oh, yeah.
Nader, we have Colby Covington, Jorge Masvidal. Who do you see getting their hand raised at the end of UFC 272?
Right now,
Colby
Chaos Covington. Okay. I have Colby Chaos Covington. But I want to say one thing. I'm not going to be surprised if Jorge Masvidal goes in there, knocks his head off in 2 rounds. I'll say this. There's 2 polar opposite side of the scale, Michael, that this fight can go. 1, as I said, Jorge Masvidal knocks him out, starches him. 2, Jorge Masvidal gets absolutely obliterated, outpaced, out-wrestled, out everything for 5 rounds. Colby gets a dominant decision win and shows that he's by far the best contender in this division. And I think it's a higher chance that Colby does that to Masvidal than Masvidal doing what I said to Colby. Now, I've never seen Masvidal this angry going into a fight. And when it came to Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier, as our guy Malik said, as soon as he saw Conor McGregor walk out, he knew that it was going to be a different fight than he planned because he never saw Conor walk out and be all that emotional. And I've also never seen it. I was very surprised to see Conor walk out, with his tongue out, all angry and hyped up. And, we don't know certain times certain emotions can benefit fighters. This can either be a huge plus for Masvidal as his motivation is not only personal, but, it's not only personal, but of course you want to knock the guy out, but now it's also personal. But, he's going to be walking in angry. He has personal hatred for this guy. He says that he screwed over the coaches that Masvidal cares and loves about very much. So we're going to see whether that either benefits him or it negatively affects him a lot.
Everything you just brought up, Nader, is why I think Jorge Masvidal is going to pull off the unthinkable. I think he's going to get a sensational first-round knockout. I think it's going to happen. Let me preface it by saying Colby Chaos Covington should win this fight. Unequivocally, he's the better fighter. His wrestling should do the job, and he has sneaky striking. That left hand, a lot of people sleep on with Colby Covington. So Colby should win this fight. Do I think he's going to win this fight? Absolutely not. I know I said he should win this fight, but I don't think he will. Because, Nader, there is something that you mentioned, but I don't think you're giving enough credence to. And that is the bad blood between these two guys. All bets are off for this fight. And to an extent, when Masvidal fought Askren, there was bad blood there. They hated each other. They still do. But take that fight and ramp it up. Add steroids to it, and you get Covington, Masvidal. To say there's no love lost would be an understatement. That's why I think, because family has been involved in this, coaches have been involved, entire training camps have been split apart because of these two guys, Jorge Masvidal is going to pull a cat out of the bag that Colby Covington doesn't see coming, and no one else doesn't see coming. I'm not going to say another flying knee will take place, but who knows? Maybe a spinning wheel kick. Maybe Masvidal decides that he's going to stand for 5 rounds and pick apart Colby's legs. Who knows? Masvidal has nasty leg kicks. He can do damage there. I think, though, that won't matter, the leg kicks, because Masvidal is going in there trying to take his head off. I think Masvidal lands a clean, nasty shot Colby doesn't see coming, and Masvidal gets it done in a grudge match. Because that's what this is. This is a grudge match.
Biggest one of all time, I think. Besides Khabib and Conor, I think that this is probably the second biggest grudge match of all time. But going off that point, I want to make sure that this is understood, that Colby Covington can take a punch. Mm-hmm. I think it's fair to say that Kamaru Usman has a I would say Jorge Masvidal's power is right here. Kamaru Usman's is about right here. He took 2 straight beautiful, beautiful shots from Kamaru Usman. What happened? He got right back up and he kept fighting. And to the appeal of my thoughts, at least, people say he won that fight, and at least he kept it close. I personally believe Kamaru Usman won, but that's besides the point because Colby Covington was able to compete after getting knocked down twice within 3 seconds, I believe. And it's not that easy, if it was coming at 2 different times within the round, but he got knocked down, got back up, and then got knocked down again, came back, and fought a great fight. Now, Michael, I would love to see Jorge Masvidal knock Colby Covington out. Not because I have anything personal against Colby Covington, although his antics can be a lot sometimes. I find some of the things he says rather hilarious. But at the same time, imagine, just how much, the MMA world would be in shock if Jorge Masvidal just starches this guy. Because I think that we view Colby as the second best welterweight, in the world right now. And arguably, I think he's closing in on becoming top 5 welterweight of all time. And I think it's fair to say that Colby Covington, deserves the respect and deserves to be the favorite in this fight. But at the same time, it's just hard to tell because Jorge really, really hates him. As you said, it's the Ben Askren hate on steroids. After this, I'm going to be watching the press conference. I want to see what happened there because I think that press conferences can say a lot about the current mood between the two fighters. But, do I see what you said to be completely, blasphemous or absolutely insane? No, not at all, Michael. I think that you have the right to say that. I'm still going Colby Covington because I think that it is a rare chance that Jorge does that. Colby has to expect that. I think that he's working on striking just as much as Jorge is just as much as Jorge is working on wrestling. But at the same time, it's just a very, very tough predicament, if that makes sense. But I think that Colby should be the favorite, and I think that Colby is going to win this fight.
Agreed 100%. Colby is the better fighter. If you're arguing that, then you're going to lose your fight. And I know you're not, but other people might.
Yeah.
Other people might try to argue that. They would be wrong. Colby is the better fighter. But they're fighting in Sin City. They're fighting in the casino capital of the world where people are rolling dice. If anyone can roll dice and shake up a snow globe, it is Jorge Masvidal.
Oh, yeah.
Because I honestly think if he did not land that flying knee on Ben Askren, I think Ben Askren would have beaten him. I do.
Yeah, he would have wrestled for 15 straight minutes. I get Jorge said, I wanted to torture him and then knock him out with 10 seconds to go. Ben Askren would have won that fight. If Ben Askren didn't have low IQ and decided to bend down when a flying knee was coming, partly isn't his fault. It was kind of one of the craziest knockouts ever. Yeah. But, I think that Colby's ready. I think that Colby definitely is ready. He's easily the better fighter. It's just a matter of whether he really is taking this seriously, because he can say, I know I'm better than this guy. This guy just got beaten twice by Usman. He's nowhere near another title shot unless he pulls off the unthinkable. And Colby could be overlooking him. He could be looking towards Khamzat, potentially Gilbert Burns, the winner of that fight. That could be a mistake. So it's definitely not going to be a bad fight. I do not think it's going to be a bad fight. And for all you fake MMA fans that say wrestling is stupid and that you hate Colby's style, get out of here. Get out of here. There's no way that you can say you hate watching Colby Covington fight. I think that wrestling is a beautiful art, and whether Colby decides to put it on him for 5 minutes or 5 minutes per round, just straight wrestling and takedowns and clinch, or whether he decides to stand and strike with him, I think it's going to be a great fight. But one thing I wanted to say, Jorge is fantastic at getting out of positions. Kamaru Usman isn't great at holding people down, but, he's someone who's, in my opinion, huge for a welterweight. Kamaru is absolutely ripped. He's very big. So the fact that Jorge Masvidal was able to, wiggle his way out while elbowing from the bottom in their fight in April, although he ended up losing, I think that's highly encouraging for people, especially now that he's continuing to work on his wrestling.
Colby's got to hold him down.
Oh, yeah.
If Colby can do that for the duration of 25 minutes, then he should win. But it's going to be hard for him to do that. He's got to be able to stand back up, and be willing to trade with Masvidal.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's going to be his ultimate flaw. All right. I think we could put that to bed. We don't see it eye to eye necessarily, but I do think, though, we agree that anything can happen. So,
Anything. Yep.
So there's that. Any final words on this card? Because this is a stacked card. And when December comes around, this could have a candidate for fight of the year. But what do you think about this card overall? Anything that stands out other than the 2 fights we talked about?
First of all, it's an extremely underrated card. If people are saying that this is a bad card, I completely disagree. The prelims stacked with amazing fighters. Also, Marina Rodriguez versus, I believe, Yao Xiaonan. Is that how you pronounce it? That's a fantastic fight. Fantastic fight. It's a shame that it's not on the main card instead of Hardy and Spivak. But the UFC has issues with bout order. I think we've seen that for a while. But I'm going to be watching it's one of those cards Mike watch from bottom to top, start to finish, earliest prelim to the main event. And I'm going to be watching, every single minute of every single fight. And I'm going to enjoy it, because at the end of the day, there's no champions that are going to be overturned potentially by this. And even in the main event, Jorge Masvidal and Colby Covington, I love both of them a lot. I think that they're great fighters, great personalities. Well, Jorge's more of a great personality than Colby is. I think that's pretty obvious. But, no bias in me for any of these fights. So I'm just going to sit back, enjoy, relax, watch this fight. And I think that it's going to be one hell of a card. It's
going to be an outstanding card. You got Edson Barbosa. You got Kevin Holland. You got a ton
Thug Nasty. Thug Nasty in the camo shorts.
Oh, man. We're going to see Bryce Mitchell break out the camo shorts. That's going to be something that, let's see if that's his good luck mojo. Mm-hmm. But Nader, that's all the time we got. It was fantastic being on with you.
Appreciate you.
Likewise, man. This was excellent. And just for our listeners and viewers out there, our new time, it's tentative, but for the foreseeable future, every Thursday night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern is when strikes and submissions will be happening. So if you're used to our 7 o'clock start time, at least for the next few weeks, it'll be switched up to 8:30. Who knows? We might go back to 7 Eastern, might stick around with 8:30. We'll see, but that's where we will be from now on. Make sure tomorrow night you tune in to On the Ball and you check out the Soccer Sit Down Show Saturday morning, 10 o'clock Eastern. But that's going to do it from my brand new co-host, Nader Assaf. I am Michael Daly saying so long, take care, and good night, ladies and gentlemen.
The marathon continues. The Mamba mentality has left a mark.